sort of housekeeping thing, asking everybody to please mute or turn off your cell phones, which I always have to remind myself to do this. And I also invite you after the program to partake of some cookies, some refreshments, provided courtesy of our society, and for those of you who might not be a member of our society yet, you can see some of our activities. In addition to Richard speaking, we're also, Ms. Ross Gibson, the Assistant Director of the museum, will be around at the end of the program. If anyone is interested in further information on the museum or the possible tour, she'll be here to talk to you about that. So, the next program will be September 14th, and our speaker will be Mr. Ethan Benegas, who is an instructor in Kumeyaay history at Cuyamaca College, and will be giving a talk on Indian gaming in the Kumeyaay Nation. So mark that on your calendars. For today's program, we have Richard Cloward of the Map and Atlas Museum in La Jolla, which is truly a hidden gem that I only recently found out about, but many people are learning about it. It's been around for 8.5 years in La Jolla, and offers people a detailed lesson in the appreciation for geography, history, politics, and the artistic beauty of cartography, which you will tell us more about now. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Richard Cloward.
Anyway, so as mentioned, my name is Richard Cloward. I'm a retired naval officer. I was a map collector while I was in the Navy, and when I retired, I opened a small business. Also then worked for a nonprofit called the San Diego Port Tenants Association. After that, I worked, I don't know if you recall the old Jim's Air. I was the charter manager for Jim's Air, and there I met a gentleman named Mr. Michael Stone. Well, Mr. Michael Stone is one of probably a half a dozen of the largest map collectors in the United States. At some point I said, I quit everything, I retire. I honestly, you all know this story, most of you are somewhere around my age, you know, I'm not going to work anymore. Phone ring one day and it's executive assistant Mr. Stone, she says, Mr. Stone, I'd like to have lunch with you. I said, well, where's the office? Well, it's on Prospect in La Jolla. Lunch. And my partner, Rosalind, who is not my partner in business, but my partner in life, I said, I'll take you to lunch in La Jolla. And we ended up, Mr. Stone had this idea for a map museum that he wanted to give to the community. A very long story down, within a year, we had a space. It was actually started when I got there, and we finished it, and we peopled it with maps, if you will, and we opened it to the public. And we've been open ever since. We are free, we take no donations, and basically the only thing we charge for, if you have an event, we charge for the catering. But aside from that, it's meant to be for the public, gifted. The museum is one of two of a kind. One of Mr. Stone's colleagues saw our museum and said, man, you can't beat me. I'm going to go up to Stanford and open one. So the only two free map museums in the United States are both in California. If you do get to Stanford, the gentleman up there, David Rumsey, took a different approach than mine. Mr. Stone took the traditional map, traditional museum approach, things out, not a lot of high tech. You gotta read, be able to read, become the museum. Mr. David Rumsey, on the other hand, very high tech, very hands-on, completely different way of doing business, but in both cases, incredible map collections. When you come to our map museum, you're looking at 5% of the collection. Those who've had to go to the back room and not be, afterwards, we have the rest involved, and actually we're beginning to outgrow this space, and I would predict that sometimes in the future the museum will probably move to a larger location. All right, so that's the background. Now, this is high tech. I used to, as those of you who know me from the Navy, I always had a bunch of chief petty officers do this stuff, so here we go. After that, it's Museum of La Jolla. You haven't figured it out? There it is. Okay, here are the details. Fay Street, it's in the village at the Coronado, Silverado and Fay. We're open Wednesday, Thursday, and the first and third Saturdays of the month. This third line down here is the one that may be of interest to you. If you put together a group of 4 or more, in particular if you mentioned you're from the Historical Society, Roz or myself will come in and do a tour for you, open the museum up, do a tour if you want, or you just have free to use it. Okay, pretty much an explanation here, and I'm not going to reread this, but this is the key thing, free. Now the parking's not free, and those of you who know La Jolla know that they have all these little people with little machines that ride around marking your tire. So if you do come, bear in mind parking is not free, or where there is free parking, it's limited to an hour, and so on. You have to move a little further out, you can find 2-hour parking. Okay, I got that. Here's a couple of views in the museum. As you can see, it's small, about 3,000 square feet, with about 200 items on display at any given time. The green room, I put this one up here because this is that room, you have one in your house. When you bring it home and you ask your wife or vice versa, where am I going to put this? They say, put it in the you-know-what room. This is the you-know-what room. This is where we have things that Mike wanted that didn't fit anywhere else. However, they're all verse. And you can see this is kind of the layout of the museum. Obviously, we've changed a couple things. We've just instituted an exhibition of pictorial maps, which is a unique American genre from the 20th century. And we do events, and we now start. This map actually is from the 1st century. The discovery in Italy of a book called the Geographica, which had been brought from Constantinople, contained the work of Ptolemy, who was a 1st century Greek. He was in Alexandria, and he would essentially query visitors when they came, where are you from? And try to determine through a basic location. And those of you with naval experience or any hiking know that latitude is very easy to find. Even I can do it. Longitude is very difficult to find. So, but he would get some idea of where these places were. He wrote a compendium of them and put them in a book he called the Geographica. He did the same for the stars. He did a book called the Almagest, which is still used today. It was that accurate, even though the stars have moved a lot, but in any event. So, what good is a book full of numbers, though? Well, here is Ptolemy's contribution to map making that we still use today. It is fundamental. Ptolemy in the back of the book said, hey, I know I gave you a bunch of figures. You know what you do with them? Well, here is a box. Here is a projection. We're most familiar with Mercator's projection. Ptolemy was the one that said, if you take these figures and you plug them in, like Etch-a-Sketch, you'll get a map. Voila, a map. This is a very early copper plate map. Prior to this, and actually during this time, most maps were done on wood block, which meant very few examples. And remember, they're always, just like Ginger Rogers, engravers work backwards, not necessarily high heels, but they work backwards. So all the engraving we're looking at, somebody's doing it backwards. This is a copper plate engraving, because in Italy they had a lot of jewelers. Jewelers were experts in engraving, so it was pretty much of a slam dunk that they would engrave on copper. Again, there are 3 continents: Africa, Europe, and Asia. 3 mistakes on this, however. And by the way, this is the grid. That's latitude, that's longitude. This is accurate, this is conjectural. There are 3 major mistakes on this map. The first is, Ptolemaic vision was that Africa and Asia were connected. The second was that Ceylon, Sri Lanka, or sometimes called serendipity comes from one of the ancient words of Ceylon. Here's your quiz question today. And India were reversed, and this was Ptolemy's world. Okay, you know it kind of fades off here, but remember Marco Polo come back and said China's huge. Why is all this important? This is 1478. This is that map that Columbus would have looked at. Now his charts would have been different. His brother was a chart maker. They had charts that showed exploration well beyond the Pillars of Hercules, aka Straits of Gibraltar. So, but combine the 2 of them and facing Portuguese resistance here, he came up with the idea, I'm going to get there by going here. And you can see why when we look at this. So, but he Meanwhile, back in the world of cartography, now we first get our first commercial cartographers. Good old Johann Schnitzer. With a name like that, you have to work pretty hard, don't you? Well, he is one of the first commercial map makers. The good news is he made pretty maps. The bad news is he went bankrupt. But anyway, so in order to make them more saleable, he adds color. Again, this is a Ptolemaic projection, but it has an error. He adds the wind buoys. These guys right here, or ladies, as the case may be, are the precursor for the modern-day compass rose, the evolution. The problem Schnitzer came up with is in the interim there have been some discoveries up here in the north, and he didn't know how to add them into Ptolemy's projection, so he just tacked them on. And for the next 75 or 80 years, as the European exploration spreads out, the difficulty becomes finding a projection that can incorporate all this. So when you come into the museum, you'll see some outlandish ways that they work to get everything on the map. And on the other hand, Columbus, 1492, did all that stuff, ocean blue, came back. On the way back, he wrote a letter called the Columbus Letter. It's about 30 pages long, half of which is a very polemic against the Muslims. Remember, they had just been exiled from Spain. Well, Columbus wanted to go back. He believed that he was very close to having found Cathay, or China. So he wrote, as I say, what's called the Columbus Letter to present to the exchequer of Spain that hopefully it would get to Ferdinand and Isabella and they would fund him to go back. His argument was threefold. Number one, there was gold. I know there's gold. And remember, he found a little bit of gold. Number two, I almost got to China. Oh, so close, I just right over the hill. You know the story. The real estate agent, the land is good out there. And number three, I forgot to mention, I left 39 people back there. You got to go back and see them. Remember, he left them a colony back there, or actually a bunch of shipwrecked Pelagos. So when he gets back this letter, very quickly, within a few months, it gets published in Europe. In the second edition of this letter, which was done in Switzerland, the publisher thought it's pretty boring. So I'm going to add a picture. Using the information in the letter, he created this little map. Now, that's not Columbus's ship. When the guys in Switzerland, he didn't know what Columbus' ship looked like. He did what he called a stock photo. He found a picture, an image. Columbus's men did not stay back there in a castle in Cuba. They were in the ship, the remains of the Santa Maria. You'll notice one island is named Isabella, and another island is named Ferdinand. As I said, Columbus was no fool. He knew his audience. What you're looking at, this is the first map of European exploration in the New World. Arguably, this is the first piece of Americana. There are 6 known copies of this map. Okay. But very quickly, things change a lot. And we now jump to about 100 years of history. And in the museum, we actually have copies of the first maps that show North and South America connected, and maps that show lots of things in that interim period, particularly, as I mentioned, the variety of projections trying to fit all this new stuff on the map. The only time equal to that, in my view, is 19th century America, Trans-Mississippi West, where they were publishing maps every few months when Indian Territory moved, and Missouri was here, and now there was Nevada, and now there was no... That was a similar period. Stuff changed very, very rapidly. Dutch come along. Dutch say, map making, we're a rich country. Remember, at this point, they were probably the richest country in Europe, far richer than England, greater sea power. This is also the High Renaissance. This map making occurred during the age of Rembrandt and Vermeer. Vermeer's paintings, those of you who are artsy craftsy will know Vermeer put maps in these paintings. And just a curious side note, when you look at these paintings, the maps are never hung on the wall, they're hung on a piece of carpet. I had a Dutchman come in and tell me why. All the houses were brick. And if you put a map up on the wall, it would basically disintegrate from the moisture. So they would hang them on a map. We can actually identify the maps in Vermeer's paintings and the map maker when they were done. But I digress. The Dutch commercialized map making to a degree unknown. They put everybody under one roof. So the cartographer was probably the least important person. The artist, the engraver, the printer, the binder, the publisher, all were in one place. They turned map making into an art. They also created the first standardized atlas. Prior to this time, atlases were done on consignment, or on, I'm sorry, they weren't done on spec. The Dutch said, time out, we can make some money here. So the maps are all done in Latin, but the text depended on the country they were selling in. Obviously, in this day and age, some atlases then become far more valuable than others because you only did one edition in Spanish. So you say, I got an Ortelius atlas and it's in French. Everybody goes, okay, $10,000. I got an Ortelius atlas in Spanish, $25,000. I mean, that's the differential. The Dutch also wanted them to be very highly decorative. And this is probably decorative on steroids. It's got the Garden of Eden, the last fall, major cities, obviously, and all the robes and dresses of people, so on and so forth. And all the geographers of the world at that time. Now, a little bit later, Adam Ortelius, one of the so-called big three, Ortelius, would be one, Mercator would be another. This map. This is America, the New World. Well, there are two things here. This map was done at the time that the majority opinion had settled on the fact that the Earth was a globe. They had a problem, however. There had been all this discovery in the north, but only this amount of discovery in the south. So the globe was unstable unless there was more land down there. How do you solve that problem? You had an unknown continent. Simple problem solved. So down here is, and it lasted as long as it took for explorers to kind of chip away at it. It became, depending on your attitude, it was either unknown land or in some cases land soon to be discovered. So it was on Cook. One thing to remember, when Cook went out, in the second voyage, he was sent to try and see if this continent was down there. He didn't find it. I think that tells me I'm supposed to be here. We talked about before about north not necessarily being at the top. This is an early map of Asia, and you can see Korea is an island. Well, we have a much more important island coming up here in a little bit, but this is Korea's island, this is Japan, so look at the compass rose, this is north. Way down here, see this little thing here? It's called Beach. That was actually the first belief that there was an Australia, or a small island there. Okay. All right. How about that? That's a busy little thing. Now, here is a huge Antarctica, and people say, see, I told you, they knew Antarctica was there all along. I reference you back to, we got to make the world stable. They plugged the continent in, and it was conjectural. So you'll see a lot of a southern continent down there. It's not Antarctica. Antarctica was not determined to be a continent until 1839, and your quiz question will be, which country made that determination? Okay, here's a clever map. The religious figures were very disturbed by the astrological signs in the sky. They asked a gentleman named Solarius to redraw the sky and put in biblical images in place of all the stuff, and this is what he did. It's a beautiful map, by the way, and it's incredible, and that's the original color on the map, so you can imagine. And look, Leo Belgicus. Very common in this century, in the 17th, 18th century, actually goes into the 20th century. Wartime, Germany is an octopus. You know, all this stuff. Belgium with a line. Why a line? It's actually the Netherlands, the Low Countries. 17 of the 18 provinces have a line in the coat of arms. It became a logical thing to do. When they went to war with Spain, they turned the line around and opened its mouth. I like this because this is the Cloward. Cloward in Dutch. My name is Cloward, and it's a Dutch name. It means he who follows the claw. It was a political party. It was not a very successful party because the Lilliards, he who followed the lily, came and wiped us out, and my family had to go to England where we spent a couple hundred years. What can I tell you? Okay, now the Dutch kind of fade a little bit. The English take over. The English are a little bit lazy. They just imported a bunch of Dutch mapmakers and create the business. Why not? You know, why not follow their business model? But they're different in what they like, and you can see in the Carta figures and all have been replaced by the sun, the moon, and all sorts of things. And right up here, they really got Japan awfully close to the North America. Actually, that's not Japan. That's California. And that's the island we're interested in because you're living on it right now. 1625. Henry Briggs tells the world, I was visited by 2 Dutch sailors who have a map captured from a Spanish galleon that was drawn by a monk. There's truth in that. There was a Spanish galleon that was captured by the English. There was a monk on board, and he was a map maker. We don't know if he did map with California without or not, but nonetheless, up to that point, it's all true. Henry Briggs says, great map! I'm going to publish this and get rich. He does. Now, he did something very clever. The burning issue of the day was not California's an island. The burning issue of the day was the Northwest Passage. So he didn't want you to be distracted by that, so he put you a bunch of text up there. So you're going to focus on what he wants to focus on. Well, California as an island, there are no copyright laws, so it obviously gets picked up very widely. And one of the great unknowns in modern history is why the Spanish, who knew better, remember those of you, you're a historical society, you know the Sea of Cortez, which is also called the Red Sea, by the way, was already explored by the Spanish. They'd gone up to part of the Colorado River. What's the deal? It is something lost in the mists of history. There are a lot of arguments that, well, the Spanish were in competition with the English and the Russians, so that an island would be less attractive. But in any event, 1625, it gets published, and it becomes the lingua franca of mapmaking for the next 120 years. There's another one. This is, by the way, this is French mapmaking. You would always think of the French as being far more la-di-da, right? No, they're much more scientific. They drop a lot of this decoration, tend to leave it in the cartouche of the title block. But here's California's, but they're hedging their bets. They stuck some islands in there. Okay. And this one. Now this one tells you a little bit about. This is by Nicolosi, not the Pizza House. Anybody from grew up in San Diego, Nicolosi's, yeah, down on 45th. I went to Crawford High School, so I'm sorry for anybody who went to Hoover or one of those. Anyway, so California's still an island, but here's the other thing, the so-called Straits of Anian. One of the beliefs was an island many times fronts a river. So Nicolosi says, well, this is the famous Straits of Anian. This is the connection. But I'm not sure how it goes, so I'll just put it in here and I'll leave it up to you whether it goes this way or that way. Well, the Great Lakes are freshwater, so obviously that's out of the question. But see, he now managed to get both issues on the plate. So, how does it get de-islandized, the reconnection? 1701, a Jesuit priest by the name of Father Kino is working with the Pima Indians up around Tucson, that area, on the Gila River. Now, these days, the Gila River was a big river, as was the Colorado. I was curious about, since Kino went down to the conjunction of the two rivers, I was curious about what it was. I have some news for you. Where the Colorado and the Gila join, you can walk across the Gila River. It's not there. And of course, the Colorado's been dammed up. But I digress. So the Indians have abalone shell decorations. And in his best Pima, he said, where'd these come from? And in their best Pima, they say, that way, to the west. He says, take me there. He's got that good Jesuit curiosity. Spoiler alert or whatever, I am a Georgetown graduate, so I've been thoroughly indoctrinated, beat around the head years. But seriously, it was very much in the Jesuit way of doing things to do exploration. They take him down to the confluence of these two rivers, which in this day and age would have been a huge Colorado flowing unimpeded, Gila River full. Indians said, no, they're further. The Pimas actually traded with the Kumeyaay Indians somewhere around Yuma. That's a little side note. But, so Kino, excited Jesuit, writes back to Madrid, I have been by land to California, it's not an island. And the Spanish Jesuit in Spain realized the Spanish government would not publish this. They understand the way, the rules of the game. They send it over to France. It gets published first in France. Passage by land to California. And there it is, that's the first map, the first knot against California as an island. Oh, well, got a little ahead of myself here. So what happens? Obviously the Spanish increase their hold over what is Baja California and into Alta California. The missions go up the coast of Baja. The presence of Spain is very strong. So many people have come across that California has to get reattached because it's not an island, everybody knows it. So how do you do this in a day when you have a kingdom? Very simple. The King of Spain issued a royal edict declaring that California was no longer an island. End of problem. 1746. Now, cartographers are always slow catching up. So for the next 20 years or so, you'll see in atlases, the world map might have California as an island and North America have it attached or vice versa. They kind of hedge their bets until about, finally disappears about 1780. Okay, we're going to jump ahead to, this is 1797. We all know about Cook, and most of us know about Vancouver, but very few people know about the Comte de la Pérouse. He was the French cook. Not in the kitchen. He was the French captain cook. How's that? He was tasked by the French government to follow in the steps of Cook, if you will, and do a world cruise and claim lands for the French, which he did. He actually was a very smart man. He would stop at places and drop his charts off, and you'll see why he was smart, and send them back to France. In fact, when he got to what modern-day Kamchatka, he dropped these maps off and gave them to a guy named the Lesseps, who went all the way across Siberia, got detained by the Tsar, and finally ended up in France. And this is the Lesseps who was the father of the Lesseps of the Suez and failed Panama Canal. So it's a series of history. Meanwhile, La Pérouse is sailing on. He makes contact with, in Botany Bay, with the English. The first group of deported or transported prisoners is arriving at the same time La Pérouse gets here. He hands his charts off to them because explorers were exempt from the conflicts between countries in this time. Explorers' stuff was handled internationally and never questioned. They may have copied it, but they always passed it on. La Pérouse sails from Australia and disappears into history. We now know that his ships were caught in a typhoon and were wrecked ashore on a small island called Banaroko in the Gilberts, I think, down there. But in the course of all this, he did a lot of wonderful map making. Now, as I mentioned, there are no copyright laws, so he's published in 1797. But here's the key: he never came to San Diego, so we'll get to that. But in 1798, the English picked up the atlas and they republished it as an English atlas. Why did this map get in there? And it's based on earlier map making. Well, when the French did the atlas, they included places where he really went. Most important for us was Monterey. He's the first one to do the map of a chart. We've got a chart of Monterey, which also was a map. That's really. But he didn't go to San Diego. But they had to fill the atlas up, so they filled the atlas up. Here in San Diego in 1797. This is False Bay, so called because if you're coming from the north to San Diego and you're in, say, your Panga or sailboat, you can very easily mistake what is now Mission Bay for the entrance to San Diego Bay. More than one person has done it, believe me. See, Coronado is not an island. See, it's connected. No, sorry, Coronado. North Island is separated from Coronado. That way until 1935, roughly, more or less. And you can see it actually has, well, you can't see a whole lot of this. Now, down below, but anyway, it gives you an idea. This is pretty good charting for this, pretty good map making for this day. Again, compass rose here with the fleur-de-lis, the French added it. The British adapted it, away you go. Down here's San Blas, a sleepy little Mexican fishing village. San Blas was a stop for this galleon. Okay, so it was very important, it was a treasure port. That's why it's on the map. Okay, now here's a manuscript map. This is done on vellum, animal skin. This is a manuscript map of New England part of Canada. I just put it in here. This was found in an attic in Scotland. And when we obtained it, you can see it's not to scale. This was more of a drawing, which is, early map making was a lot of it. Arguably, there are people who argue that 12,000 BC cave drawings are maps, and they are. They're wayfinding. Anyway, done on vellum, and this is Hudson Bay. That's the Straits down here, and that's Long Island, to give you an idea. We're getting close. So, I mentioned the second period of great, incredible frenzy of map making was roughly the time between the Mexican-American War through the end of the Civil War. Actually, a little bit later than that, it's 1870. The Trans-Mississippi West, that part of the United States west of the Mississippi. And what you can see is, this is the famous 54-40 fight. If you had a British map of the period, that would be British territory. We claimed it, and we won because we outpopulated it, basically. This is Alta California. This is Texas. Now look at that stovepipe for Texas. It goes all the way up into Colorado. What? Okay, what happened? Texas comes into the Union and says, we've got $13 million in debt. That's a lot of money in there. Still a lot of money, but really a lot of money. So now that we're a state, the federal government can assume our debt. Sometimes the government's smart, you might think, wow, we're not taking on your debt. What are you going to give us? The state of Texas ceded the land west of, I forget which meridian, and it became the eastern half of the territory of New Mexico, and a slice of Colorado, modern Colorado, actually come from the old Republic of Texas. This is Indian Territory. Indian Territory had existed from the time of Jefferson. Jefferson had a vision to bring all the native tribes, all the native tribes together in one place, take them through the stages of culturalization, and then it would become a state like any other state. Obviously very naive. Along comes Andrew Jackson, says no, the rest is history. But Indian Territory never goes away. This is Indian Territory, and if it looks familiar by the time it's done, it's Oklahoma. And if you have maps from the end of the 19th century, you'll see this wonderful, almost monthly change. Here's Indian Territory. Oh, here's Indian Territory and 3 little Oklahoma counties. Oh, here's Indian Territory and a bunch of numbered counties, not names. And pretty soon, like the Cheshire Cat, all the Indian tribes are subsumed and it becomes Oklahoma. Not one of the prouder probably parts of history, but from a cartographer's point of view, it's a fascinating amount of drawing and redrawing. This is Missouri, and in any event, 6 months from this, it will all be changed. Gold. This is one of the earliest, this is one of the very first gold maps, and it was done by Ord, Fort Ord fame. Ord was an interesting guy, right? This is the mining district of this Santa Cruz County you see as Branciforte County. Probably they should stay with that. This is the gold reaches by the Copper River. I like this. This is done. Only 3 copies of this map around. I don't spend a lot of time telling you, this is one of a kind and all that, but a lot of it is. Mission Beach, 1915. How about this? This is Spreckles started buying up all these lots. And this is the first idea for the real estate boom that succeeded the one from 1880. This is New California, New San Diego down here. There's the Coronados, there's Mexico. San Diego, a whimsical map. George Marston was a member of the Bohemian Club. And he met there a gentleman named Joe Mora. Joe Mora was a Uruguayan who came here with his parents, who were artists. He and his brother were both artists, and they had done work for the Mora. The brother, Luis Mora, is the first well-known Hispanic American artist. He's fine art, it hangs everywhere. In fact, in the San Diego Museum of Art, there are two of his paintings. Joe Moore took the opposite path and became an illustrator. And he wanted to write books. He worked many, many books around the turn of the century done by, or illustrated by him. The illustrations are highly desirable, but he had a book he wanted to write. And when he went to the publishers, said, I have this book. And they said, well, that's nice, but you're an artist. We don't care about your book. He said, I quit. Smartest thing that ever happened for pictorial map. So he decides to go out to the west and just see what it's all about. And he comes to California, roughly to Carmel to begin with. And he spends the next 3 years going up and down California, taking note of the end of the vaquero, the Spanish cowboy. His drawings and artwork are considered to be the finest ever done, detailing the end, the demise of the Spanish vaquero. He ends up in New Mexico, living with the Hopi Indians. He does cachinas, and they're highly desirable. And he learns Hopi. He gets adopted by the Hopi tribe. And then he becomes a translator in their work with the U.S. government. He would have stayed forever, but that thing that all young men inherit, which is love, got him. And he moved back to California to get married. Well, he did some work for the Del Monte Corporation, which was not the canning company, it was a real estate company for what is now Pebble Beach and all that. And he drew some maps for them. Marston saw the maps. Marston says, and this is a very important piece of California history that I spent a little bit of time. Marston said, I want you to draw a map of San Diego for me. So my 50th anniversary of my department store, Marston, is coming up, and I want something to hand to my clients. He said, and by the way, I'm George Marston, I want to own the rights to the map. And Moore said, well, I'm Joe Moore, and I don't sell the rights to my map. It was an impasse for a while, and finally Moore said, all right. Came to San Diego. Now, there were two very finicky people. I won't get into all the details, but very finicky people. But Marston said, 2,000 copies with an envelope. Antiques Roadshow, envelope, right? Find the envelope, guess what? You got it. So, and he said, by the way, I own them all, and I want you to destroy the plates afterwards. Well, Moore did that anyway. He did his own stuff. He basically did a fixed amount and no more. Now he's under somebody's aegis. But he does the 2,000 copies. And a couple of things to note here. First of all, the idea of a pictorial map is that it should be recognizable as to what it is. Next step is it should be whimsical and make you laugh or make you spend a little bit extra time. You can spend hours looking at this thing and find it. Trust me. Mora gave a nod to the past. He did carved figures around the outside, drew from the Dutch. This goes all the way back again to the 18th, 17th, 18th century. He added in here, these are the department stores. He tells all about what it's about. This is a decorative cartouche. Down here he puts several buildings, the zoo. He built some of these buildings still here. He puts Balboa Park. 3 of these 4 buildings are still here. History of San Diego. By the way, I love it. He does it backwards. Instead of going as you expected. 2,000 copies of this map were done. And by the way, this is a reproduction, and I'll explain how I got it. So, and they're owned by the San Diego History Center. 14 of them are. The rest of them are somewhere out there in the public. I know where 3 of them are. We have 2 and I have 1. We were allowed to reproduce this for an exhibit we did of the work of Joe Moore a couple of years ago. Strictly numbered, and if you're ever out there collecting maps, reproductions, first of all, this is a 1/4 inch smaller. That's enough. Just enough so somebody who measures it would know it doesn't fit. Second of all, down here it has clear text that says it's not the real thing. The other thing that Marston wanted was he wanted it folded. Okay, so if you're collecting this map and somebody sells you a rolled up copy, you're going to say, that can't be folded. And it had an envelope. Quick side story, I get a call one day, and a young man from up in San Francisco area had just been mustered out of the Army, and they gave his great-grandfather's military trunk. his great-grandfather had been an aviator, had been killed in an airplane crash. He said, I opened up, I really want the uniform, but there's this envelope with this map in it about San Diego. And I went on your website and I see that you have that map in your collection. Do you know how much it's worth? I said, do you have the envelope? He said, yes. You don't want it? No. I said, how long has it been in the envelope? How long has it been in the trunk? He said, well, nobody, my great-grandfather died in 1928, your publication. He said, it's never been opened. So we had the provenance that the grandfather died in a plane crash, had been stationed at Coronado, had flown for some reason, they'd gone to Panama, and had been killed in a plane crash in Panama. So the normal dealer to me says, yeah, you know, we could work a deal. I called Mike, and Mike said, no, offer it, pay him full price for it, pay him full value for it. So that's how we got one. That's sometimes how they come in. Most of the time, we're not that lucky. Okay.
What is the value? What was the value?
It's about $2,500. These are not the most, this is something you can start in your collection. Disneyland #1 map, 1958. Remember that? Disneyland map? Huh? Remember? Came in a little bag like that. $4.69. Last one sold $3,500. On the other hand, a 1978 Disneyland map, there were probably 100,000 photos, $45. That's all. But the #1 map only was published for 3 months because Disney changed. Alaska North Frontier, this is another beautiful pictorial map. Won't spin it. And, the Aswab Zanzeno. This is a day-long lecture that I won't go on. This is the only known surviving medieval timepiece. It's technically not a map, but Mike fell in love with it and we got it. It is priceless. It has no value at all. It was designed for the Abbey of San Zeno, the Cathedral of San Zeno, which both still exist, to keep track of Easter. It has two wheels, bovelles, and it's very complicated. I don't want to spend a lot of your time with it, but if you come down to the museum, we can talk about it again. It is the only known surviving copy, and it worked in conjunction with another map that was on the wall of the cathedral, painted on the wall. What happened was it started out to delineate Easter. Verona, the nearby city where it was done, was a hotbed of mathematics, kind of the Silicon Valley of mathematics. And they said, we can add all this other stuff on it. By the time they were done, there were 16 bits of information on here, including the day of the month, day of the year, pardon me, the saint's feast day, the number of hours of sunlight, so on and so forth. Right here in the middle, it's called the golden hours. That's how you calculate Easter. The peg matches up with a phase of the moon, and is red. Now, in its day, you remember the Solarius map with the beautiful color? This was that color when it was new. It's vellum over oak. And I'd love to spend more time on this, but that's not. North Pacific, nav war maps. The Navy put out propaganda maps to educate the public. Well, one guy's education, the other guy's propaganda, right? This was 1944, and it shows the road to Tokyo. Now we have to be careful because it uses some fairly not salty but no longer correct language in there. But this was a series of 4 maps that were done. You can see they're huge, and that's it. Yeah. So now obviously I have a few other things I want to show you. But before I start, I'm going to give you the quiz question because I do have a little giveaway for the quiz. So this is a book from 1848. It is the Notes of a Military Reconnaissance by Brevet Major Emory. And one of the entries on December the 7th says, day dawned on the most tattered and ill-fed detachment of men that the United States ever mustered under her colors. The enemy's pickets and a portion of his force were seen in front. The sick, by the indefatigable exertions of Dr. Crichton, are doing well, and the general able to mount his horse. The order to march was given, and we moved off to offer the enemy battle. Okay. The quiz question is going to be, what was this day, what battle had just occurred, and what were they talking about? And it's not 1941. San Pasquale, exactly. Exactly. And not only that, this is the only map that was ever published map of the Battle of San Pasquale. Since it is only fitting, since we are near a winery, you get a winery map. Okay, I'm going to spend a couple minutes with these, and since some of them fell on the ground, that was God's way of saying you're not supposed to look at them. But let's move over. This is a map by Walt Muller of Africa. This is a woodcut. The color is original. And as you see, it kind of follows the Ptolemaic. If you go back and look at the Ptolemaic view, it kind of follows the Ptolemaic view. They're beginning to add little features to them to make them more, I should say, more decorative, for lack of a better word. Okay? All right. Now I don't want to, man's nice painting. Okay. Over here, any idea when San Diego actually finally became big enough to be included in atlas? Ballpark figure? 1895. Up to that point, San Diego wasn't big enough to make the books, as they say. And here it is. This is San Diego in 1895. And how about that? This is called City Park. Those are the rail lines. You can see. Actually, okay, now I'm going to tell you like moving around here. Just keep you on your toes. This one, for all the squids in the crowd, this one, I'll just hold this up like this. This one was done and given to recruits at the Navy Recruit Center. And it says down here, this map is your property, save it or mail it, as a souvenir of your first liberty. Well, okay, what are we doing here? I got a map in my hand.
What year is it?
Well, they gave them out from the World War II through the Korean War. Yeah, I know. But that's kind of cute. All right, now I am going to the magic isle of Tahiti. Ah, yes. Now, remember I told you that we had the English version of the French map. This is the French version of the English map. They stole stuff like it was, there was no tomorrow. So this is Tahiti under Cook. Cook first went to Tahiti. You remember to track the transit of Venus, and for some reason the sailors didn't want to leave. It had something to do with
cohabitation.
Yeah, it was a pretty good Liberty port. It was a Subic Bay of its day. Those of you who appreciate that. It was, but the transit of Venus didn't go so well. But this is the beginning of Cook's incredible amount of voyage. More islands, more places were found by Cook in the 18th century than the rest of the time subsequent to that. So he was quite a man till his third voyage. Yes, sir.
Just a footnote also that that was the actual basis for the mutiny on the Bounty, is because Captain Bly's crew didn't want to leave Tahiti either.
Yes. and Bly wasn't the smartest cook. Bly. Yeah, and yes, you see why. Well, I'll send it. Now, unfortunately, I managed to drop these under the table. There's one under here I'll try and get. This next one, just real quickly, of interest. In the 19th century, we were very proud of our culture, and I'm sure we are, but to the point where there were atlases produced for states and even for counties. And in this case, this is Indiana. So how would you get this atlas would be produced? And you can see that's the classic, almost the classic layout of townships. They would go out and they would solicit subscribers. So if you got enough subscribers, then they would publish the atlas. If you subscribed, you got your name on the atlas. I can't tell you how many people's hearts been broken when they found out their name wasn't on the atlas. They said, well, your parents were great, didn't subscribe to. Here's another one for Grant County. And on the back, they would do these wonderful drawings But they would be like the Fuller Brushman. They come to the door and say, would you like to buy an atlas? And they were doing it on spec, okay? Basically, and it worked. So you have a whole collecting genre of things like that. And I thank you very much. Okay. You are a historical society, right? Then you will appreciate the work of the Lindgren brothers. This is Yellowstone Park done. Now, you may not know the Lindgren brothers, but some of you probably rode in a car looking at the Lindgren brothers. Why? Remember the little car decals you used to get? I've been to fill in the blanks. Lindgren brothers. That's who did that. So your parents' car, plastic up with all that, that's where they got it. They had a little side business where they did these maps. Why you like this is because you may be a historical society, but as far as the Lindgren brothers is concerned, this is a hysterical map. Not historical. So these are also quite desirable to have. They're, again, looking for prices. They're in the low, the mid-$500, $600 range. They're not the $1 million maps. But, all right. And over here, well, I mentioned that the English did the La Perouse, and there. This is the original, from the original atlas. It's a folio, called an elephant folio, very large folio. It's a copper plate engraving. This is how it would have been published, black and white. They were not colored. Charts are not colored. If you get a colored chart, you're not getting a good deal. Okay. So we're running wild here, and I'm running way over my time, I think. No, I got 4 minutes, but I have. But the lovely Roz is back, and that's it. One more thing, so let's see what else we...
Can I ask a question?
I don't know why not.
I thought the silver strand was man-made. I thought the silver strand was man-made.
No.
It's not.
No. The earliest maps to show it are a little bit earlier than this. Kind of show up from, and it was connected. It was always connected. From Cook, this is in one of the drawings out of one of the Cook atlases. This is still the first voyage. This is, if you translate it, it's fighting by risks amongst the Indians, but it's actually wrestling, form of wrestling. We have in the collection, we have all three voyages, the atlases and books from all three voyages of Cook, and they were done by the same author, same publisher. I mentioned Disneyland. There it is. There's the map. Right there. And I don't think this one has it. One of them has the price of $4.69. The original, Disney was quite a cartophile, and the original map that he used to sell Disneyland in New York was done, basically was done in this style. It's a manuscript. There were about 3 done, they believe. Anyway, this one on the market sold for $500,000. And about 2 years into Disneyland, by the way, there's a college course in math, I don't know if you know that. It's not for credit. Disney called in his imagineer, who was a guy by the name of Sam McKim, and said, Sam, do we have a map of Disneyland? And Sam, yeah, I got all these old brochures. He said, no, I mean, monumental map. This is a later version. This is what became the Disneyland map. So you've probably seen one of these. Most of the time when somebody offers them to us, they have 2 holes up in the corner. Why? Because somebody had pinned them up to a wall. Yeah, Grateful Dead poster, gone. Oh, jeez, no. Mom, don't throw that away. Well, again, these vary. Some years were published same map was published for several years, so they're not so valuable. There were 33 known Disneyland maps. As I say, Disney was quite a cartophile. He really liked maps, and the reason, back to the beginning, the reason why the first one is so rare is because in the first year of publication, Disney was changing exhibits so quickly that they had to do 3 different maps. Disney had this theory, basically, that if it didn't work in a couple of months, it wasn't going to work. And you look at the early maps, and there was a surface at one point outside the grounds of Disneyland. Didn't work, went away. There was these things that didn't work, went away. So the first year or 2, things were changing so fast, they had to do several maps, 3 maps to be exact. I have pretty much wandered all over the cartographic landscape here. The bottom line for all this is to see the rest, you need to come to the museum. All the things I said before, particularly if we don't fit our hours, are going to be reinforced and further explained, and you get a chance to take your eyes off this wizened old man and look at a beautiful woman, Rosalind. It's going to come over here and talk to you about the educational side of things. And by the way, on the back table, there is a 19th century American atlas that I brought in that you're welcome to thumb through. We don't use gloves. That's kind of a misnomer. There's not enough grease in your hands to make a difference anymore. Okay.
All right, so Richard probably mentioned our open hours, just the doors open, no appointment needed. Wednesdays, Thursdays, first and third Saturdays, 11 to 4, so you can just wander in at your leisure. If you'd like a guided tour, we do guided tours for even just one, but it has to be on an open day. And my card's on the back table. If you want a guided tour, you need to shoot me off an email and let me know, because Richard, the director, does tours, but he's not there every day. So I can arrange for him to come in and do your tour, but I need a little heads up from you. For non-museum days, if you have guests coming in from out of town and it doesn't fit into our schedule and you'd like to share the museum with them, we will do that if you have 5 or more that want to come see the museum. Again, requires you to shoot me off an email, let me know what your dates are, and we'll make that happen. Richard does the tours, takes about an hour. If he gets extremely long-winded, it takes an hour and a half.
I got clock, don't worry.
If you, and parking is often an issue for folks from the standpoint that the on-the-street parking is limited to an hour or 2 hours, and they enforce it vigorously in La Jolla. And so that's, if you're able to walk 2 or 3 blocks, you can go a little beyond us and find parking that is not timed. So often your visit is dictated by your parking. We have parking underground, but it's charged parking, and since we're a free museum, we don't validate, so parking would be on you. If you are coming to the museum for a tour, even if it's just a single tour, and there's a particular interest that you have, like you'd like to see the cook volumes, you need to let me know ahead of time, along with your request for the tour, that there's a certain area, a map, so does Mike Stone have this kind of a map, because Richard may have shared, the majority of the collection is not on display, but we can bring it out upon request. So, and if you have educational connections to school groups, we'd love to have school groups. Again, it just requires something from the teacher letting me know what age, what they're studying, what days they'd like to come, and we will set up an educational tour. We shorten theirs down a little bit. And if they're in elementary school, we do half-an-hour tour and we do a half-an-hour scavenger hunt where they can run through the museum and find things. So they have a good time.
Walk through the museum.
Or walk.
All right, preguntas?
You made a reference earlier in the presentation about this need for what turned out to be Antarctica, though they didn't know yet, to make it more stable. But I don't know what you meant by that term.
The belief, the physicists believe that the world had to have an equal amount of land in both hemispheres. So in order to do that, they had to create this unknown land. And that's what that land is. It gets chipped away over time by exploration. And in fact, Cook probably was the last, pretty much put the stake in the heart of the fact that there's a great southern continent. There obviously a great landmass down there of some sort, they were certain, but it wasn't going to be the North America of the southern hemisphere. It wasn't going to be colonizable, if that's the word. The actual discovery of it, or the determination that it was a continent, was done in January of 1839 by an American military naval officer named Charles Wilkes, and Charles Wilkes, who you study Civil War history, Charles Wilkes was the guy that took the 2 British commissioners off the train incident. Anyway, Wilkes it's a very interesting story, because Wilkes, they've gotten very close, and the U.S. exploring expedition was kind of the 19th century equivalent of Cook and Vancouver and La Perouse. 5 ships to go around the world, see if there were any islands left that would be named, and wave the flag. Well, part of this is, on wooden ships no less, they got to the coast of what is now Antarctica. And on the first, this is way ahead, one little side note. So, the first day that one of the days they're there, an enlisted man reports that he sees smoke and there must be a volcano. And Wilkes is a bit of a tyrant. He said, the enlisted man doesn't count, write it off. 3 days later, when the officer sees it, and they, okay, put it in the log. Well, he gets back to, and starts publishing. He finds out that there were French explorers in the region at the same time. So he immediately backdates the log, make sure he's ahead of the French. But anyway, he was quite an interesting guy. So the answer was, if the initial terra incognita was to create this balanced planet. And it goes away for 2 reasons. 1, exploration, and 2, physicists realize that it doesn't have to be balanced. At the same time all this is going on, there's all sorts of explorations to determine the shape of the world, the magnetic fields, and all this stuff.
I just have a quick question. When you have an old map at the museum where I work, and I'm wondering, is it possible to bring it to La Jolla and get an appraisal?
Sure. Or you can send me a picture. One thing, okay, I don't mind doing appraisals. They will not be official, but I say that because I have to appraise the states and things of this sort. The biggest usually is the condition, and what I need to know is picture shows. It's nice to have it. I can do it with a picture if you can get a little bit of a description. If you have something in your locker, you want. And by the way, those remember I said the Disneyland maps, old road maps from the 30s and 40s now. There's a whole market for old road maps. They're not. They aren't going to buy you a down payment of a Mercedes-Benz, but $25, $30 a piece or something. It's kind of fascinating. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure which continent you were talking about just now.
Which continent?
Yeah.
Antarctica.
Okay.
Antarctica was the last and only discovered continent. Remember, all the rest of them were explored. When Columbus came to the New World, he didn't discover, European discovery, but he didn't discover it in the sense that the people who were here said, well, we know we're here, what do you mean? But Antarctica, as I say, 40 million penguins can't go count. If you ever get the chance to go, Roz and I went about 5 years ago now, to Antarctica on an exploration trip.
In there.
Stunning. It was a life-changing event. No. Thank you, Mark.